Welcome to the lab. We're getting ready in this area for a ice storm. An ice storm, for those fortunate souls that don't live in areas where they can occur, can lead to some shenanigans. In our history in this area, since my wife and I got married, we've had two ice storms that were of any significance. The first left us spending a week sleeping in my office, and the second was soon after we moved into this house, and we were in a hotel for several nights. In both cases, power was out. In one case, I stayed behind to watch over pets and keep the pipes from freezing. In the other case, we were a little bit more fortunate in that it was mostly just trying to get a warm place to sleep at night. The house was not going to freeze, but it was going to get cold enough without power that it was going to be uncomfortable. So, anyway, both of those are, more than a decade ago now. No, not quite more than a decade. Close to that, though. But this time around, just trying to make sure we got plenty of food that doesn't require cooking is the big thing. Lots of emergency rations, and there's enough of us. There with 5 people and creatures that we could probably stay warm here, unless it gets just really bitterly cold and we lose power for more than a few days. So anyway, that was my project for the day, was to make sure that we had everything lined up for that. At one point in my career, I fancied myself something of a database administrator. I haven't really been doing much of that for quite some time, but I just recently had to pick up Postgres, and for those that don't care, it's just put your fingers in your ears. And I'm kind of learning the quirks. The biggest quirk for me is I was a command line guy, and what I'm trying to use is a GUI, and I'm finding just too many limitations. I've got to strip the GUI off and go back to command line, or I'm never going to get anything done. So that's that's gives you a little insight into my soul. That I'm desperate to get back to command line. Then the other thing that I wanted to bring up today was actually a thought that I've had. We oftentimes, if you live a prepared life, in that you are being thoughtful and planful about what you're doing, in whatever feels appropriate for you. There's sometimes where your plan is in a state of flux. There's some big change coming, and the plan itself, you're kind of there's a lot that you don't want to do ahead of time. There's a whole lot that you don't want to. It's like, well, if I exert this effort in this direction, it's just going to be wiped out because we're going to be going in that direction, and we're going to have to leave this behind. Or there's just no good way to prepare until we know for certain. Or like if you are looking for a new house, you can't start mowing the grass until you've bought the house. That sort of thing. And that's kind of the situation I find myself in right now. In that I had a plan. I've had a couple of them, and it seems like whenever I feel like, okay, all right, we've got the plan, we know what we're going to do, some external force comes in and makes me put the brakes on. In this case, we've got to move. And that move, you know, has been imminent for a year, 2 years now. And I'm just getting to a place in my career where I can take my career with me. I don't have to find another job. I just keep the one that I've got and do what I am doing now, only, you know, not having to be here. Well, we have a place to go. And in October, that place, we had a plan in the spring that someone was going to be buying the place from us. And that, in October, fell through. They decided that they couldn't do it for their own reasons, and which is fine, but that means that the place fell back into my lap. It had been there before. It's actually my wife's place, but screwy Kansas law says that if her name's on it, my name's on it, because I don't know, they don't think that women can own stuff on their own or whatever. I don't know how that works, but for whatever reason, came back into our possession, and I was like, okay, that's where we're going. We're going to go there. Even if we don't stay there long, that's the plan. And then out of the blue, someone calls up and wants to see the place and wants to potentially buy it. I can't say no. If we sell it, you know, that's closing a door, but it's opening others. We ostensibly own it, but it would be really nice to turn that back into money, because it needs some effort, and it would be faster, more expedient if we sold it and used that money that's currently locked up in that place for other things. Sure, you know. But then that means I'm waiting again. That means that the plan has to change again. And you're not in command of your own destiny. At least until that happens, you're kind of like, okay, well, there's some things I just can't really justify doing if I might be selling it in a matter of months, weeks, whatever. So it's that fit and start. I get an idea, we go for it, start working, we get the plan worked out, start working in that direction, and then have to hit the brakes because something's changed. It is unfortunate not controlling your own destiny, and it's unfortunate that that's the way we spend most of our time. With the arguable exception of being a 2-year-old when the world is your oyster and people, they can't, you're pretty much in command of the world at that point. Most of your life you're answering to others. You're living somebody else's schedule, even if you're homeschooling or if you think that you're independent. For one reason or another, you're probably not, and that's kind of unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but right now it's very acute for me. It's very, very real, and in this moment that I could just say, no, we're not going to sell it now. But is that the right decision? My brain tells me no. My brain tells me if somebody were to walk in and offer me a number that is acceptable, I should take the money and go. And maybe just that knowledge tells me that it's not the direction we should go. Knowing that I could put the next year's effort into making the place something that we can use, and then wipe it out with the signature on a piece of paper and say, yeah, we're leaving it. And then where does my effort go at that point? I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to have options, but it's also interesting to realize that you're kind of at the whims of reality. Things, yeah, you can hope that something's going to work out. You can hope that whatever goal it is you've got lined up is just going to happen for you if you work hard enough. For every person that succeeds by working hard, there's a whole lot of people that failed by working hard. And even if they didn't fail, they existed, they survived, which isn't really a failure in the grand scheme of things. They raised a family, or got to spend 10 or 15 years in retirement, whatever that goal happened to be, whatever felt right for them. But the wild successes are few and far between, and you can follow to the letter what someone else who's been a success has done and never get anything, never go anywhere, end up flat on your back. You could work hard for 5 years and then suddenly get run over by a subway, or all your best laid plans go to hell because the bank decides to pull the money out of your accounts to pay off a debt that you would have paid off in a matter of months. They decided that you're too much of a risk now, so they just take your money and use it to pay off the debt and sever the relationship with you and then leave you with nothing. It can happen. Because you're not in control of that. No amount of positive thinking changes that fact. So, that's uplifting, isn't it? Well, it's kind of a downer. That's alright. You have the down times too. And the funny thing is, it was a bit of optimism. It was a good thing happening that made me think about that. Deciding that I needed to remember that the best laid plans of mice and men. It's not a terrible thing to have your plans change. It's not the end of the world most of the time. And you can't fear the results of those changes. You just got to go forward. Keep going. That's all there is. So, a little bit of lab philosophy.